Today we're gonna work on protecting those knees by improving our mobility and stability. Everything is gonna be 45 seconds. We're gonna start with foam rolling our lower leg and the outside of our lower leg. So get the ball. You can also use a roller or handheld roller, which I'll show you. 45 seconds on the clock, and let's go. So pressing that lower leg down into the ball to help the muscle relax and release, and applying as much pressure as we need. Again, keeping the ball a little bit back towards that calf muscle, and you can even tense and relax that foot. So tensing, drawing the toes up towards the shin, and relaxing the foot out. And then you can move it a little bit lower if you need, but working along the outside of that lower leg. If the lacrosse ball is too much, if this positioning hurts your knees at all, remember you always have the option to have that handheld roller, okay, and you can press into the outside of your lower leg. You can also just use the ball in your hands and push in as well, okay? Applying pressure as much as you need, even making little circles as you hold. Otherwise, you're pushing down on the outside right here and even slightly leaning forward over it as you hold. Working down the outside of that lower leg. You can also use your roller as well. It's a little bit more awkward and doesn't allow you to apply the same amount of pressure. So a ball really does work best. You push down. And again, you can sort of flex and relax that foot as you hold. Hold on any extra tight spots even longer, even if you use the whole 45 seconds on a spot. If one side is tighter, you might take both intervals to work a little bit more on one side. Well, we don't necessarily want to spend much longer than a minute because we don't get any added benefit. If one side is tight, take a little extra time on that side. And just sort of breathing and relaxing into it, even pushing down a little bit more to apply a little bit more pressure. Make sure that you're not tensing the muscle against the ball though. Next, coming up to a bench or box if you have it, you're gonna place the ball on your hamstring. You can start underneath your butt, but you can work all the way down the back of your lower leg, or your back of your upper leg. There we go. And you can even extend the leg and relax back down. Extend the leg and relax back down. And then move it to even another spot after 3 to 5. Finding any spots that are tight and even holding there. You can even lean forward a little bit over it. If you don't have a bench, you can always use the ball off the ground or even off a block. You can also use your roller off the ground, especially if you don't want to apply as much pressure because the ball really digs in. To apply just enough, you can always use one leg, so crossing the other over it to apply a little bit more pressure, or use both if you want to reduce the pressure, okay? But you can rock until you find a spot, and then you can even sort of tense and relax the leg, and then you can move on to the next spot. Otherwise, if you do have that bench, it's a great way to really dig in with the ball and apply a little bit more pressure. And again, if something's tight and you really feel like you're almost wanting to tense against it, just hold and breathe. You don't have to do the leg movement, you just hold. You can always bust out your softball because it's a little bit bigger and won't apply as much pressure. You can also use the handheld roller on the back of your leg too, but again, you want to make sure you rock them when you do it. Good, then coming down to the ground. To show you, I'll use the softball for the TFL, but the smaller and harder the ball, the more you're gonna dig in. So if you find that hip bone, place it right behind it and down a little bit, almost like you're gonna be pushing the ball up into that hip socket. Don't do so violently, please, but just think about even pushing in towards that hip socket. And you can cross the other leg and top in front, and that way you can lift and lower that bottom leg to even help yourself dig in a little bit more. You can relax all the way down onto your side instead of propping up if you wanna apply a little bit more pressure. You rock forward a little bit and backward to find what's tight. But that TFL can be a nasty little sucker, and it can not only affect our knees and create knee pain through that IT band, but it can inhibit our glutes and overwork for that glute medius, which we want working to improve our hip stability. But so holding there, again, using that lacrosse ball if you want to dig in a little bit more, or even your roller if you don't want to dig in as much. So just to show you what it does look like with the roller too, just so you can see. Placement, again, still that place back behind that hip bone, sort of at the top there, the side of our leg, or side of our leg. Top side of the leg, there we go. And you can lift and lower as you apply pressure. Moving to find the tender spots. Good. And then the half kneeling hip to hamstring stretch. So when you do this stretch, you want to think about squeezing that back glute as you reach up, okay? Not arching your back because you want to drive the hip into extension, activating the glute, and then hinging at the hips to sit back. I know it's really tempting to sort of round over and reach forward, but you want to think about hinging at the hips and then squeezing the butt. Hinging at the hips to stretch the hamstring, squeezing the butt. Our hamstrings can be overstretched already because of tight hip flexors, so we want to make sure that if we are stretching them, we're ingraining that proper hip hinge movement pattern. Because we don't want to see this, right, when we deadlift and do all that stuff, we don't want to round forward. We actually want to think about hinging at the hips to push our butt back. So this is a great way to train that movement pattern, make sure that our hips are mobile through a full range of motion, okay? So squeezing the butt and then hinging, sitting the butt back to stretch up the back of our leg. Squeezing the butt to drive that hip into extension, reaching up, and then hinging over. If you need to, you can also do the standing. Okay, so you'll just sort of tuck under, reach up, and then you'll hinge back, pushing the butt back, feel that nice stretch, okay? Tuck under, reach up. It's like almost like a little dance move. Tuck under, reach up, squeezing that butt because that's really what drives the hip into extension, and then hinging. Or you're down here, reaching up, sitting back, hip hinging. But again, remember to stretch that hamstring, you're not just leaning over it, you're actually pushing the butt back, okay? Squeeze the butt. Don't just fling back more. You don't want to arch your lower back when you stretch. Focus on the glute, not just reaching back overhead. Good. Next, we're gonna do frog stretch with internal rotation to get those adductors. So you're gonna spread your knees wide, your feet are turned out. So show you from the side, you're trying to rest the inside of your feet on the ground, then you're gonna actually rock forward and lift, internally rotating that hip, and then sit back. Internally rotating that hip and sit back. Try not to let your feet come together behind you, okay? You're sitting your butt back, internally rotating that hip. So you are coming forward and slightly rotating the side as you internally rotate that hip, okay? Don't try and internally rotate the hip as you're back. So we're putting those hips through the range of motion, stretching out our inner thighs, mobilizing our hip joint, okay? If this feels like a little too much, guys, you can come up here. Okay, you can walk over to one side, even pivot. Okay, you can walk over to one side and even pivot that back foot. This can be a little bit better if you need to be standing, if it's too much on your knees, but you can also apply a little bit more cushioning. So next, on your hands and knees, you're gonna pivot, okay, into that nice pigeon pose. Think about flexing the foot, sitting back into that glute, okay, and then you're gonna pivot the other way. I'm gonna try not to kick anything, which will always begin, and then you're gonna reach out. And you can adjust your feet as you go. This is a great dynamic stretch to really loosen up those glutes, mobilize those hips. If this feels like too much on your knee, you can always do this seated here, okay? Even alternating sides, pushing open, hinging forward a little bit, okay? Pushing forward, hinging open. Especially when we're using this as part of our warm-up, we do want to try and keep more of the stretches dynamic to warm everything up and mobilize those joints and not affect our power output. Good, so we'll do one last one here. Good, okay. So two-way skater taps. So coming up, balancing. You're gonna reach back and out to the side. And then you switch back and out to the side. Or out to the side and back. So you're in this little skater squat, back, out to the side, we'll mix it up, side, and then back, good. But you're in this little hip hinge position, so you're working those quads, you're sitting back in those heels. We're forcing our balancing leg to really stabilize and protect that knee, load that glute. Okay, it's not active knee flexion, which can be really nice, and a great way to work our quads without hurting our knees. Plus it works on our balance and our control from the ground up, because we want to make sure our foundation is stable. Because if there's instability at our feet and ankles, there's gonna be instability at our knee. You can mix up what direction you go, have a little fun with it. Bulldog, leg lifts. So you're on your hands and knees with your knees about underneath your hips. You're gonna lift up on the balls of your feet. Then you're gonna lift one leg, and then the other leg, okay? One leg, and then the other leg. You're gonna feel your quads work. You're gonna even feel your abs working. Okay, and your shoulders working to stabilize everything. If this is too much, guys, come off the bench, okay? Because you can still be in that little position and still work your quads. If you have a shoulder issue, you can also flex and extend. Okay, flex and extend. It's still a great way to really work those quads to protect those knees. Otherwise, you're lifting and down, lifting and down. not rushing it. Then grab your block. We're gonna do a glute bridge with squeeze. So you're placing your block between your knees. Your feet, knees, and hips are all in line. You want your feet way out wide, okay? You're squeezing that block as you lift. Squeezing that block. This is a great way to work your core and really engage your pelvic floor even as you bridge up while activating your abs and even strengthening your adductors. Because while they can be tight, guys, they can also be weak. And if they're not strong, that's also gonna lead to overload of our knee and some of the aches and pains we suffer from. Okay, so really squeezing that block. You can use ball, box, anything you have, foam roller if it's light enough. But think about really engaging everything. Make sure that your knees, hips, and feet are in line. Okay, you want to create that good alignment all the way down your leg. Think about driving your knees toward your toes. Great job, guys. Nice way to protect our knees, keep everything healthy and happy.